Hello. Well, following our last two videos, we had lots of comments from you about the fairness of the DVLA giving Specsavers the monopoly for the driving licence eye tests. Many putting forward that most favoured of all conspiracy theories that brown envelopes were involved, a theory that arises in many areas of governance, whether it's procurement or planning, and I have to say never with any actual evidence or substance. But you're all looking for answers, aren't you? So in this edition, I'm going to give them to you. I have a copy of the DVLA's 2023 Procurement Document, and it has raised some red flags for me about the provision of the services, and we're going to be taking a look at them. And you won't want to miss what I found out. Welcome to Grey Matters. Hello and welcome to Grey Matters, the channel that promotes the fact that the older generation still matters and has relevance, and which looks at issues that matter to the older generation. Now, before we get into it, you will find next to the like and share buttons below the video a new one that says Hype, and it's for smaller channels like ours, and it's only there for the first 7 days that a video comes online. And if you hit that Hype button, it puts the channel out in front of a lot more people. It's designed to help channels like ours to reach a wider audience. So I'd be really grateful if you'd hype this one, and indeed all our new content if you can catch it in the first 7 days. I really would appreciate it. It will truly help us to grow and reach more people. Thanks so much. Right, the Biggins saga. We can't really look at this DVLA issue without mentioning Christopher Biggins, a national treasure, veteran broadcaster, a TV personality and star of countless pantos here in the UK, with a performance history going back more than 55 years. He's affectionately known simply as Biggins, and he went viral recently with his story about failing a Specsavers eye test for the DVLA. Now, despite subsequently submitting 2 further eye tests, one from Homerton Hospital and one from Vision Express, both of which he passed, the DVLA still revoked his licence, causing widespread outrage online and widespread claims of age discrimination. So we're going to just have a quick look at that before we do our deep dive into the issues surrounding the DVLA and Specsavers, because I want to know if Biggins was the subject of ageism, or did he simply misunderstand what was required? Or maybe he was the victim of flawed eye tests. Now, the only tests that the DVLA requires are visual acuity, which is just measuring the sharpness of your vision using those familiar eyesight charts known as Snellen charts, and the field of vision test, which presents you with a series of white flashes across your field of vision, and you have to press a button every time you see one. Now, bear in mind that if you wear glasses for driving, you can use them for these tests, although some people have commented that they actually get better results in the field of vision tests without their glasses on. And I wonder if that's maybe because when you're wearing them that the frame obstructs some of the white flashes on the screen. That said, there is also some legitimate concern about using spectacles on this test, which I'll come on to later. Now, what stands out about the DVLA eye test chart is the 7.5 line, which was added to match the exact vision requirement for driving. The chart is usually placed 6 meters from where you stand, and to achieve this distance, the chart will usually be behind you and you'll view it using a mirror in front so that you get that 6 meters distance. Now, similar to a standard optician's eye test, you'll be asked to read down the chart as far as you can. The smaller letters you can read, the better your score on the Snellen scale. Now, for someone with normal vision, reading the line marked as 6.6 on the chart is no trouble. But for driving, the key is to be able to read at least the 6.12 line, which matches the minimum eyesight standard for car drivers. And just as a personal note, if you have reactive lenses that darken, do ensure that they fully lightened before taking the tests, or take a clear pair with you if you have some with the same prescription. Just a point, because if they're dark, it could certainly affect your results, couldn't it? I think. Now, the stuff I discovered during my deep dive into the procurement process and the questions and red flags it raised for me made it pretty obvious to me that it wasn't ageism that resulted in Biggins' failure, and I think you'll understand why I think that as we go on. Now, I suspect he didn't really realise what tests were required. Certainly the hospital eye test for his diabetes would only be checking for eyesight issues caused by the disease, and from what diabetes sufferers have told me, that doesn't include a field of vision testing. As for the Vision Express test, again, if that were a normal eye test, then I don't think it would count. I don't think either they have the equipment for the field of vision testing. I could be wrong. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a write-off for Biggins. I might have exposed a loophole, for want of a better term, that might be exploitable, but it would need an expert to investigate it. Again, all will become clear. No pun intended. All right, so let's get on about this Specsavers. How did they get the job? How did they get the sole provider? And nothing I report on here should be taken as criticism of Specsavers themselves. I use them for my own prescriptions. I've got no issue with them. But I must also drop in a further disclaimer here, because this is a complex subject with a lot of conflicting information from the .gov website itself and other resources. So it's always possible that despite using my best endeavours to research this, I might have got some of the detail wrong. I don't think I have, but picking apart all this detail was quite a challenge. So how exactly was Specsavers chosen for the DVLA's eye testing contract? You will probably be as surprised as I was to learn that Specsavers has been the DVLA's preferred supplier since 2014. Now, I presumed in our last video that the contract would have gone out to tender, and it did. For all contracts over a certain value, local councils and central government must put them out to tender. And the last two DVLA tenders were awarded in 2019 and 2023. Now, when the 2019 procurement document went out, I understand that the contract value was £19 million. That's the amount the government put aside to pay for services provided. Specsavers' bid was just £9 million. Wow, £9 million? £10 million less than the budget for it. Now, I've been involved in tender processes in the past, so I know that the value placed on a tender invitation is based on pretty solid evidence gathered from national economic factors, industry experts, and assistance from advisors. So they are all pretty much in a realistic ballpark. So for Specsavers to come in at 10 million below the contract value, for me, raised a number of red flags. Why so low? How was it that low? How could just 9 million be sufficient? Could they really be expected to handle thousands of tests without the quality of service suffering? At that price, surely something had to give. Now, Petition, which I believe is the trade's leading website and news source, reported that in regards to work done prior to this tender invitation, Specsavers has said that 420 practices had participated, with around 70,000 drivers tested every year. Now, many complaints online about Specsavers were that not every branch had the right equipment to do the DVLA tests, which meant and still means that customers have to travel, sometimes very long and inconvenient distances. Now, bear in mind the DVLA usually gives quite time frames in which to comply, and that can be problematic when you have to go hunting for a branch that will do the tests. Now, however, Primary Eye Care Services, which tabled a rival bid for the tender, so that its tender would have delivered a convenient, local, flexible service for the public and high quality reporting for the DVLA via the 2,500 optical practices situated across the UK that were included in the proposal. That's 2,080 more branches available than Specsavers. However, I imagine they came in closer to the £19 million contract value, specifically because of the high number of branches involved. But it does seem that the DVLA preferred to go with a cheaper option that, according to you lot, appears to provide a lesser service. Now, Specsavers' aim in 2014, when they first won the contract, was to have eye test centres within 25 miles of people's homes for Group 1 tests, which are the normal car drivers, and within 50 miles for Group 2. Now, that's highly unsatisfactory, I'd say. And considering that back then they only had 361 capable branches, and now just have 59 more, that travel situation can't have changed much. Just think how much more convenient it would have been with a choice of 2,500 branches from primary eye care services. Now, then we come to the value of the 2023 tender. Let me just remind you that I said a moment ago that the values placed on tender invitations are based on pretty solid evidence and are pretty much in a realistic ballpark. So how was the value of this tender significantly reduced to just £14 million ex-VAT? How can that be? How could the advisors think that was realistic? If the contract was worth £19 million in 2019 and prices have risen, the economy has shrunk, austerity has been rife, how can the cost of providing the DVLA with that service have got less? Well, of course it hasn't, has it? But with such a low contract value, I imagine that effectively rules out the likes of primary eye care services, whose running costs since 2019 would have increased, even with all that COVID nonsense. A cynical person might put forward the possibility that the value was set deliberately low to ensure that one particular optician won the contract. A cynic might hypothesise that with Specsavers winning the 2019 contract with just a bid of £9 million, they would easily be able to up that bid and stay within the £14 million value. Now, I'm not suggesting that's the case. I'm just putting out there what a cynic might think. And even if that 2019 £19 million bid value included VAT, if you add VAT onto the 14 million, it still comes up about 17 million. So it's still less than the 2019 value. Now, there is a petition out there calling to force the DVLA to consider more than just cost for a field of vision test provider, and I'll leave a link to it in the description. I reckon we can blast it with loads of signatures because it's us who this affects, and we need to ensure that our treatment is fair and proportionate. So, although Specsavers were chosen again by a completely transparent tender process, it just doesn't feel right. Now, I know from many of you that you've got concerns about who at Specsavers is conducting the tests. Well, in reading the latest 2023 invitation to tender document, I think that people are quite right to question that. And this is the point that I think might help some of you. I might be clutching at straws here, but contracts are taken very literally, and this procurement document, to me, with my layman's opinion, is flawed. Now, section 11.2.4, the description of the procurement, states that the authority requires a contract which will deliver a visual field and visual acuity testing service by qualified and trained optometrists and opticians to assist the authority in determining a driver's medical fitness to hold a licence. Trained optometrists and opticians. Now, this section raises a number of issues that I reckon need further investigation. First of all, the inclusion of opticians is, in my view, totally inappropriate. Opticians do not conduct eye examinations or diagnose eye conditions. Instead, they work with prescriptions provided by optometrists to provide corrective eyewear solutions. They are also responsible for fitting and adjusting eyewear to ensure comfort and proper vision. One of the primary responsibilities of an optometrist, however, is to conduct thorough eye examinations. And during these examinations, they assess visual acuity, tick 1 for the DVLA, and they check for refractive errors like myopia, and they evaluate the overall health of the eyes, which would include field of vision, tick 2 for the DVLA, and they can clearly detect signs of conditions such as glaucoma, cataracts, and macular degeneration. Now remember, the procurement document stated that the testing service must be delivered by qualified and trained optometrists. Forget about opticians. In my view, they're not qualified to administer field of vision tests, and even if they were trained, it's not their job. As I've said, their role is to assist you in selecting the right eyewear. Nowhere can I find any reference to them being trained to use Specsavers' highly technical equipment. And even if they have been trained to push the right buttons, they still probably lack that finite experience and ability to determine if the test itself was flawed or totally successful. Now, this raises a potentially serious issue for all of us. A member of a diabetic support forum has posted that he has had concerns about some of the DVLA requirements for this eye test, in that people being assessed under the contract may have used inappropriate optical correction, which hampered their performance. In other words, their spectacles weren't suitable. Long story short, if you find that the red dot in the centre of your vision when you do that test is out of focus, it means all the white flashes will also be out of focus and potentially missed. So I would strongly recommend that you draw the operator's attention to this if it happens to you. It makes for interesting reading actually. It's not a long post, but it goes into a lot more detail. And rather than go into the fine detail here, I'll leave a link to it in the description. So take a look at it, it's worth it. And if your licence has been revoked, when you look back and remember thinking, that was out of focus, maybe that gives you a reason to call foul and ask for a retest. I don't know. Check it out, see what you think. I don't think in all the years I've had these tests that a trained optometrist has physically done them. It seems that someone has pulled off the shop floor to administer the checkups, and the results are then sent next door for the optometrist to interpret. So who is doing these tests? And what if they get it wrong and the optometrist gets incorrect results sent to them? Usually the person who sits me down for the field of vision test and explains what to do then walks away and leaves me to it until the test is complete. They don't stay and supervise. I mean, that's only my experience, but from the comments online, it's often the case that you have to repeat the test because something wasn't quite right, which is what happened to Biggins. He did the test 3 times. Would that still have been the case if a qualified optometrist had overseen the process? Now, the document is quite clear that the service must be delivered by an optometrist, and in my unprofessional opinion, even though it mentions optician, that shouldn't be by someone whose job it is to fit spectacles. My view. But what do you do if you failed the DVLA test? I mean, is it worth going to another branch of Specsavers and trying again? Because I'm sure there must be cases of human error or unnoticed technical issues, or, that are causing some of these failures. Is it worth finding out who administered the test, what training they'd had beyond sitting down and putting the clicker in your hand, and did they remain with you? Are they supposed to remain with you? Now, it might sound like a lot of faff, but this is your independence and your mobility we're talking about. And should I fail the test next year, I will try everything I can to confirm that my eyesight is good enough or not, but I want it certain. Now, one viewer, Nick Casale 8438, said, I took my partner for an eye test to the Specsavers in Bognor Regis. While I was waiting, a lady walked towards the front desk holding a piece of paper with a huge smile on her face and said, "That's another one we got off the road." "That's disgusting," he said. Yes, Nick, it is. I absolutely agree. And it needs a robust complaint to their head office. It's behaviour like that that certainly doesn't help to dispel the widely held belief that the government just wants the roads clear of older drivers. And I tell you what, if I'd heard that, I think I would have challenged her on the spot about that. Shocking. And I would dearly love a contract lawyer to look at the issue of who should be conducting the tests, because if the terms of the procurement document weren't followed and aren't being followed, or if the inclusion of an optician is indeed not appropriate, then maybe, just maybe, there might be a situation for those who fail the test. Maybe they could get retested and their licenses restored. I don't know the answers, but maybe there's now an expert out there who might. I wonder if there's any takers. Now, if it seems as if I've been bashing Specsavers, that's actually not the case. I'm simply trying to unravel possible answers to our viewers' questions, to your questions. And in fairness, at the time of the 2023 tender being prepared, the Secretary of State for Transport was asked what assessments had been made of Specsavers in their role as sole partner for DVLA eye tests. The reply included the statement that Specsavers' performance was monitored monthly in line with the terms of the contractual agreement, and they were meeting all key performance indicators, which included measures of turnaround and quality. And it's here with the turnaround target, I can see the company allowing opticians to conduct the field of vision tests, freeing up optometrists for other customers, perhaps. And to be fair, Specsavers does have a rating on Trustpilot of 4.5 with over 156,000 reviews. Now that's quite incredible, because as we all know, many people only take to review sites to complain about the goods and services. And so, you know, to maintain such a high score with so many reviews is remarkable. And interestingly, reading the review summary, there is no mention of dissatisfaction with the eye tests themselves. I certainly won't be going anywhere else for eye testing, but I still say that someone needs to take a look at the issues we've highlighted in this edition. And as for Biggins, driving licence or not, I hope he goes on entertaining the nation for many, many years to come. That's it for now. If you like our content, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and don't forget that hype button at the beginning underneath the video. Thank you. Be a great help to get us out in front of a few more people. So that's it. Let's have your comments. What do you think of this? This may well be the last one we're doing on driving licenses for a while. We've got plenty of other things to be looking at, but we'll see what your comments decide, because we are quite comment driven. So we'll see what happens for the next edition. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining us, and until the next time here on Grey Matters, is bye for now.